Steve Smith here. I'm a CAD Tech guru. This is a tutorial that I'm putting together for, it should be more of a beginner level sort of tutorial, and what I'm focusing on here is blocking out a site plan. So there'll be about 3 steps. I'll follow up in a couple of additional tutorials. This is part 1 of 3, and they will be covering the process of drafting out a site plan, a prototypical site plan, based on a very simple, straight, square lot, so that it's easy to draw and easy to follow. I'm going to try to go slow to allow you to absorb a lot of what I'm doing. So let's get right to it. Alright, here is a property line, and it's nice and perfect and square, and I made this just the right size for this building to fit on it. This is the road, the main road that you'll be accessing from. So the first step that we want to do is to allow for some green space. We're gonna go in and figure out where our drive aisles need to be, and in order to do that, you want to take into account the landscaping area that's going to be around the edge of the site, and then you also want to take into account 6 inches for a curb line, and then we'll go from there. So to start this out, I'm going to offset on, I want 5 foot of landscaping around the sides and the rear, and then I want 10 feet around the front. So I'm going to offset 5 foot 6 inches and come in on the sides and the rear, and then I'm going to offset 10 foot 6 inches on the front, and then I'm going to use the match command to put those on my curbs layer. So this would be the head of parking that's going to be there. So our parking spaces are going to be 9 foot by 18 foot, so I'm going to offset 18 foot to allow for parking all the way around the perimeter, like this. Then our drive aisles are going to be 24 feet. So I'm going to offset 24 feet and come in like that. So that's a drive aisle going all the way around the edge. Now at this point, to keep this from being too confusing, I'm going to go back in and erase these first lines that I offset, just so that what you're seeing here is our drive aisles. That's what we're trying to do right now, is find the drive aisles. So I'm going to put a 10 foot radius going, turning around through the drive aisle. So fillet radius 10 foot. And then we'll just put those on each corner. And then to clean these other ones, I'm going to fill my radius back to 0 and just make those little corners like that. Okay. Now, we're going to want an access point to the site. We call this a curb cut. So I'm going to do an extend out to this point, and then extend those lines to here. And here all we got to do is trim this out, and I'll put a 15 foot radius. So fillet radius 15 feet there, and then I'm going to trim this out, fillet radius 10 feet. So that gives us an access point to the site, a curb cut. Okay, now here's where we're going to want the building to go in the middle. Now we're going to want a row of parking across the front, so I'm going to offset 18 feet in the front, and then we're also going to want parking on both sides, so I'm going to offset 18 feet there. And then within that area we're going to need sidewalks, and when you're coming in at the front of a parking space like that, we want to do 7 foot sidewalks. So we'll have to allow 7 foot and 6 inches for the curb line. So I'm going to offset 7 foot 6 inches. And then I'm just going to come in like that. So that shows where that's going to be. Now that would be the edge of our sidewalk at this point. So I'm going to want about 5 foot of green space or landscape area around the building. So I'm going to offset 5 foot. And this will just give us a visual reference as to where we want to stay within with the building. So now I'm going to go over here and get the building, and I'm going to move this, and I'm just going to pick it in the middle, turn off my ortho, and just kind of drop this in the middle here and see where it lands. Okay, so see, I can push this forward a bit, and I can push this over a little bit here. Yeah, and see, we've got a little bit of extra room over here, so I'm just going to kind of slide that over just a little bit, just to center it on the pad. Okay, so that's all that. I'm going to go ahead and erase these lines just to get them back out of my way. Now in the back here, you can see we've got a lot of extra space, so we're going to add more parking in the field back here, and we'll do what I call a double bay. It's 2 rows of head-end parking. So I'm going to offset 18 feet, and I'm going to do that twice, and then I'm going to offset 24 feet for another drive aisle. And then I'm going to extend those lines out this way and trim that out, and then fillet radius 10 feet so that I'm getting my drive aisle going around this way. So you can see here's the main road. We come in here, and these are all our drive aisles. These are rows of parking here. So to represent the rows of parking around the perimeter, I'm going to go ahead and offset 10 feet, or I'm sorry, offset 18 feet for a row of parking like this, to where we can see where those rows of parking are. See, I always like to come back and do this, because after you've filleted these radiuses on the corner, it shortens this line, because this parking isn't going to come all the way out here. It's going to be cut short because of the radius. So when you get done with the radiuses, you come back and offset them, and you can get a better idea of where your row of parking is actually going to end, like that. Okay. Now this would be considered a driveway coming into the site, so we're not going to want to park all the way down in this area. I usually like to cut it off right about even with the drive aisle right there. So I'll just draw a line and trim this off from there, and then erase that. So you can see where all the parking is going to occur. Now here, I'm going to go ahead and draw a drive up to our service yard and trim that out. I like to see if we can get a 10-foot radius on it if we can, and it looks like we can. So there's the access to the service yard. Now on the pad, I'm going to go ahead and offset 10, or why do I keep saying 10 feet? I'm going to offset 18 feet for our rows of parking. Looks like we might be able to get a little bit back here too. That one's getting a little tight. I probably won't do any right there. Now, when we put a sidewalk in front of this, we're going to want the sidewalk to just go straight across right here. So obviously we can't overlap our parking. But if you account for 6 inches of a curb, and then a 7-foot sidewalk, and then another 6 inches of curb, that's going to be 8 feet. So if we offset 8 feet like this, and then trim this off right there, that's going to be an accurate representation of where that parking will end, and our sidewalk will be nice and straight going out right there. So let's do the same thing here. Offset 8 feet and then trim this off. So there's where our parking will be right there. And I always like to try to get a full row across the front, so that we're getting as many spaces as we can, as close as we can to the front door. And then from here we offset and go back, and then from there, you know, get as many spaces back as you can, and then offset and go across the next row right there. So that pretty much sums up the blockout. From this point, you can go in and estimate the number of parking that you have based on how long these lines are. You know, if you list this line and it's, you know, 180 feet, then you can divide that by 9, because a parking space is 9 feet, and it'll give you a pretty accurate estimate of how many spaces are going to be here. So we know exactly what our site is going to look like with just a little bit of work and just a few lines, so that we can make sure that everything works out the way we want it to before we get into the next stage of cleaning all this up and drafting in all the graphics part of the site. So that's pretty much it. I hope this is helpful to you. Again, please remember to like this video and subscribe to my page, and leave comments down below if you have any questions or if you have any suggestions for future topics that you'd like me to discuss. Thanks. Have a great day.